Welcome to the Rosa Talks Ball podcast with me, Rosa Simpkin.
They said nobody cared about women's rugby, but guess what? We out here. We out here, fam. We're going nowhere. And straight down the ground, that is divine from Cross. Kate Cross on so many occasions has made a name for herself with the ball for England. Today in Bristol, it's with the back.
Oh, and the tune is through here, and the tune for England! Oh, yes! What a goal!
Hello and welcome back to the Rosa Talks Ball podcast with me, Rosa Simpkin. This week, I've got something rather special in store for you. Next week marks the start of the 2024 women's cricket season here in England. And to mark the occasion, I've got a special two-part podcast coming your way, giving you the opportunity to hear from some of the stars of women's cricket, with an interview from a player of each of the 8 women's regional teams. You are currently listening to part 1 of the podcast, where I speak to Fee Morris from Thunder, Kelly Castle from Sunrisers, Katie George from the Central Sparks and Chloe Hill from the South East Stars. I spoke to all 4 of these players to gain all the latest insights so you don't have to. Part 2 of the podcast will be coming on Wednesday 17th of April, and to find out more about that lineup you can check out my Instagram and Twitter at Rosa Talks Ball. I spoke to Fee, Kelly, Katie and Chloe all about their predictions, pre-season preparations, hopes for the season and much more, as they prepare for the 5th and final season of women's regional cricket as we currently know it. As I'm sure you can imagine, with 4 interviews this week, it's a long one. So as always, there are timestamps in the description to help guide you through the episode. But as ever, if you have the time, please do join me, Fee, Kelly, Katie and Chloe as we discuss all things women's cricket. Now then, before we get started, if you have any queries, you can contact me on contactrosatalksball@gmail.com. On social media, you can find me through the @rosatalksball. And please do check out my website, rosatalksball.wordpress.com, for all the latest word on women's sport. As always, all of these details are in the description. So then, let's get started. I'm super pleased to welcome Fee Morris to the podcast. Thank you so much for coming on, Fee.
That's right, thanks for having me.
First and foremost, what made you pick up a bat and ball for the first time?
I think really boring, really standard. My brother and my dad played a lot when we were younger, so I'm one of 7, so I'm the youngest of 7. So obviously come from a massive family. Was being pulled in all different directions to see what I actually wanted to do in life, because I've got my sister's an artist and my brother's a cricketer, so I realised that cricket was the one for me and I just loved it. I just played in the back garden until my hands were blue, really.
I'm the youngest of 6, so I feel that pain.
Yeah, it's intense.
It is indeed. When did you think, a bit of a jump here, I can make a career out of this, I can reach the highest level of the game?
Genuinely not until I actually got the phone call from Western Storm. I think it was never a thing growing up. Like, you can, unless you were going to play for England, which I didn't really think I was good enough to. Unless you were going to play for England, you just weren't going to be a professional cricketer. And at the time, I think we were in COVID, and that was when they decided they were going to make it professional, and they were going to be, I think it was 40 pros in the country. And I thought, I might just sneak in, but didn't really know if I was actually going to make the cut. And then I got the phone call from Lisa Paget, and that was the first time I actually thought, oh wow, this is it then, this is what I'm going to do.
You've just mentioned there that you were one of the first players to sign one of the new pro regional contracts with Storm, but at the end of 2022 you decided to switch green for red and head up north to go to Thunder. What drove that decision?
So it wasn't really a choice for me. I lost my contract to Western Storm, so they decided they weren't going to renew my contract, and essentially got told I wasn't going to be a professional cricketer anymore. And it was really difficult at the time. It was the thing that I'd always dreamed of doing, and the thing that I still believed that I was good enough. I still had that belief in myself that I was a good enough cricketer to be one of those kind of 40, 50 pros in the country. unfortunately they didn't, and that's absolutely fine, and I can understand why that came about. But yeah, I had a job lined up, so I thought, right, I don't think I want to play cricket anymore. I think mentally I'm not strong enough. I maybe don't have the resilience. Maybe it's just not for me. And then I got in sort of last minute, got in contact with Paul Shaw at Lancashire Thunder and said, "You know what, let's give it one more crack and let's see how we go up north." And luckily they had one more contract go in, and that came to me, and I've never looked back.
I mean, you definitely proved Storm wrong. You had an incredible season last year. You scored 364 runs and took 15 wickets. But going back, what are your feelings of the ECB's decision to shake up and create the regional system in 2020? Do you think it was the right decision? Do you think they should have gone down a slightly different path?
I think it was the right decision. I think they had to do that. You can't have 18 female counties. The quality isn't quite there at the moment. The strength and depth isn't quite there at the moment. And to be honest, the money isn't there to then employ, at the time, 5 pros in each team. In all honesty, and I might get in a bit of trouble saying this, but I don't think it was done particularly well. I think money was thrown at the regions and they were just left to their own devices. And I think, off the back of that, down at Western Storm, we were training in, 3 different places a week, and it was really difficult. And for me, I was having to balance that with working. So I worked pretty much full time in a physio clinic as well, because, the money wasn't amazing back then, and I was living in the centre of Bristol, and it's an expensive place to live. So yeah, for me, I'm not going to blame my performances on that, but I think it probably had a part to play. And I think, I'm very lucky that I've now got my contract up at Thunder, and I don't have to work alongside it. But it would have been a real shame if I'd stopped playing cricket because of a lot of things that were outside my control and that weren't to do with playing cricket, if that makes sense. I worked hard, but it was hard balancing it with the amount of work that I had to do. But they've got to try something, and there's always going to be things that work and things that don't. And it feels like it's definitely on the right path now. And especially at Lancashire Thunder, we're unbelievably well supported, and it's an incredible professional setup. And yeah, everything happens for a reason, and I'm very happy now, and I think that's showing in my cricket.
And then a little bit of a jump. How do you keep yourself motivated when the season ends and there is no cricket to be played?
I don't, to be honest. When I'm not playing cricket, I'm really not playing cricket. I call it sad. I see a psychologist outside of cricket to help with kind of my mental side, and we call it the elastic band theory. So when I'm not playing cricket and we're in off season, see how far I can stretch my elastic band and do something really, really separate from cricket. So I go to a different country, I'll do a bit of travelling, I'll eat different foods, I'll see different people, I'll see my friends from school, see my uni friends that don't know anything about cricket, which is so refreshing. And yeah, just try as much as I can. It's difficult being a professional athlete to switch off, but as much as I can, I try and switch off as much as possible. And then you get your elastic band that then snaps back when we're back into training, and I miss it, and I miss the girls, and I miss the grind in a way. And then yeah, we're back to getting fit and doing all your skills of the winter. So I think for me, I love cricket more and I love training more when I'm not there and I'm not thinking about it, and I'm doing as much as I can outside of cricket as I possibly can.
That's a really refreshing way of looking at it, for sure. And then looking forward to the 2024 season, what are your personal goals with Thunder and then further afield?
Yeah, I think we're completely full steam ahead set this year on winning. I think probably in the past Thunder haven't been massively successful, and winning has been quite rare sometimes. And I think having a new head coach in, having the confidence that we had from how well we played in the T20s last season and making it to finals day and really competing there, it's just pushing that forwards now. And if we can hit the ground running, win a few games early on, I think that would be fantastic. But we're not beating about the bush this year. It's none of this. We're going to enjoy it. We're going to have a good time. We want to win, and I think we're good enough to win. And and we've had a fantastic preseason tour. You know, I've been away for the last 2.5 months playing quite a lot of cricket. Yeah, we've had a brilliant preseason tour where we won a lot, and I think just having that mindset put in early is really key for us.
I think you're definitely the side which a lot of people are watching for sure. And you've mentioned it briefly there, but what has your winter training looked like as a team unit, and how are you preparing for the season?
Yeah, so obviously before Christmas is that winter grind, that fitness grind. So just a lot of running and a lot of skill stuff, which is, you got to embrace it, haven't you? And then after Christmas, we had a 10-day batting camp in Mumbai. So mainly learning how to bat against spin. And for me, it was a lot of bowling on really spinning pitches, which obviously we don't get so much in England, but you do every so often. And it was almost overtraining, so it was spinning so much that you had to bat a slightly different way. But that was a brilliant 10 days and a really good learning experience. Myself and Ellie Fraukel then jetted off to Sydney for 6 weeks to train with New South Wales Breakers and see how their setup was run and how they did things a bit different, and train with them. And that was, again, a brilliant experience for us. And we then met the team in Dubai. So we actually had a couple of days off before meeting the team, which was quite nice. A couple of days on the farm. And then, met the team in Dubai for a couple of games, and then went to Bangalore for 10 days. So it's pretty full on, a lot of travelling, but yeah, lots of different pitches, lots of different experiences. So hopefully they'll set us up for the season.
You've definitely been everywhere then. Probably not spent much time at home over the past few months, I'm going to assume. And then you've spoken about how positive Thunder is as a region, and I can see that as well from the outside. But what does your setup currently look like? Where do you train? How's your access to facilities and coaches, etc.?
Yeah, so I think from my point of view, I say lucky. It's not really luck. We will work pretty hard, but we're all very grateful for the experiences and the opportunities we get at Thunder. So we train every day. We train at Emirates Old Trafford. So, obviously access to the gym, access to the facilities there. We also get access to David Lloyd down the road for our recovery stuff. So we've got a pool and a sauna, and again, another gym there. We'll have a bit of training at Sale Cricket Club, which again is a brilliant place to train. They've got great nets there as well throughout the summer. So we're pretty spoiled in terms of the opportunities we get. So I think, there's no excuses for us to not perform, and hopefully, get to a couple of finals, say, this year.
I think Thunder are definitely one of the regions which are setting the bar as to where a lot of the other teams, even when we transfer into the county stuff next year, really need to live up to and support their women's sides in the same way Lancashire have for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, that our CEO is quite heavily involved in everything that we do. We have quite a lot to do with him. We see him on the golf course on tour in Dubai, which is always good fun. And he talks about kind of setting that standard and being that team that everyone looks up to in terms of the facilities and the structure that we have. I think probably where we've let ourselves down maybe in the past and in the 50 over competition last year is those performances on the pitch, but it doesn't happen overnight, and sometimes you have to have a bit of patience with these things. But I think having a new coach come in this year and a bit of a fresh start in terms of that mentality, I think is perfect timing. And I have no doubts that we'll perform on the pitch this year, and I'm really excited.
Looking forward to next season, some predictions. Obviously, you'll want to be up there yourself, but who are some players you're backing to really be in the runs for Thunder this year?
I think Seren Smale for me. I think she's an unbelievable talent. She's only kind of 18, 19. Oh, I don't know how old she is actually. I'll have to ask her. 19 maybe years old. I've never seen anyone strike it as well as she does at that age, I don't think. And she's obviously been away to New Zealand with the academy and gained some experiences over there. And I think she'll really cement her top spot position this year, and I'm really backing her to score a few runs this year.
It was really good to see her picked up in the 100 draft a few weeks ago as well, because I think she's definitely a real talent for the future. And also from a wicket point of view, wicket keeping point of view, could definitely be a long-term replacement for Amy Jones. So I think she's definitely a real talent.
Yeah, me too. And I think we've had some quite good chat. I'm pretty close to Cesar. She's a great girl. And we've had some really good chats this year about kind of her mentality and how important that is in the game. And it's something she's worked really hard on. So yeah, I think she's got the talent to do it. And I don't want to put pressure on her because, we don't need any more pressure. But yeah, I'm fully backing her to do well for us.
Then looking on the flip side of things, obviously you'll also want to be up there for this as well, but wicket taker. Which of your bowlers are you backing to have a great season with the ball?
I'm going to say Tara Norris. She's been away over the winter as well, and she said herself she was maybe a little bit disappointed with how she bowled last year. I thought she did a great job, but yeah, she said she sees herself as being more of a strike bowler, and I completely agree. And seeing how well she's bowled on tour, we call it when you're nipping the ball around a bit, calling it having a bit of personality, and she's definitely brought her personality out of her shell on tour. So yeah, she's doing a bit more with the ball, definitely putting a yard of pace, and seems really confident. She's definitely a confidence player, and she's bowling brilliantly at the moment. So I'm backing her to take a few for us up top this year, hopefully.
Then looking at 2 in 1, a potential breakthrough star, so maybe someone in the squad who doesn't get much attention or a younger player, and then a potential all-round player of the season.
So breakthrough, I'm going to go with Elsa Lister. So she obviously got picked up in the 100 again. She was quite a surprised by it, but I said, you shouldn't be surprised. You completely deserve it. She gives it a bit of a whack. So yeah, she's another young girl. So she's only 19, coming down from Scotland. This will be her first full year training with us. She's really impressed me. Just her cricket, and she strikes the ball really nicely, but actually her mentality, her confidence, her aggression, she's just really impressed me with it in all kind of facets of the game. So hopefully she'll be a bit of a breakthrough star for us. And all round, I'm going to go Naomi Datani. So probably going to bat in our top 5. Again, bit away for the winter, striking the ball really nicely. Again, putting a bit of yard of pace. Again, probably a little bit of a confidence player is that, and seems to really have a tail up at the moment, and definitely did on tour. So I think just as a whole, as a squad, we've feel in a really good place, and there's a lot of confidence flying around. And yeah, hopefully we'll all contribute at some point. But those are the 4 players that I'm really looking out for.
And then I think I already know what the answer is going to be to this question, but can the Vipers' dominance be smashed? Will there be a different name on one of the trophies, or both of them, at the end of this season?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I hope so. Look, they're a brilliant side of Vipers. They're pretty stacked. They've got a lot of England players, but who knows? They've obviously got a couple of younger players coming up as well, but you can't stay at the top for too long, and it's harder to stay at the top than it is to get to the top sometimes. But with Lottie as their coach, she's a brilliant mastermind. But yeah, I think the quality, the strength and depth throughout the whole country is massive now, and it's growing so much. So even if it's not Thunder, obviously I hope it is. In the first year that we played, it was pretty much a given that the Vipers were going to win that, and now it's really not, and they have to fight a little bit harder. And they were pretty lucky to even get to 50 over finals day last year, and obviously ended up winning it and fully deserved. But yeah, I think that quality throughout the whole country now is much bigger. There's much more competition, and I fully expect it to be a pretty tight race this year, with Thunder winning, obviously.
I certainly hope that there's a different name on the trophy. It's getting a bit old now. We need someone else to win a final. And then building on that, obviously every team will be fighting for it this year with regional cricket reaching its conclusion. But who is another team you'll be keeping an eye on as a potential dark horse throughout the season?
I think for me, Sunrisers. I think they've improved so much over the last few years, and I think having a new coach come in and have a real kind of fresh look at them seems to have done them really well. They obviously didn't have the best start in their first couple of years, but yeah, I think their new coach has done a brilliant job with them, and they've got some real talent coming through in people like Grace Scrivens and yeah, I think they've always had a great batting lineup and maybe haven't had such a good time bowling wise, but I think having Danae van Niekerk at the top and her experience coming in is exactly what they needed, and they're really competing now and they're a real tough opposition. So yeah, I fully expect them to compete a lot this year.
I think now they've broken their kind of curse of not being able to win games, they're definitely ones to watch. Then continuing with other regions, a player or players who you'll be keeping an eye on from the other regions for each of the tournaments, so in the T20 stuff and the 50 over stuff.
I think T20, it's hard not to look past Bryony Smith. I think the way that she strikes the ball and the fact that she's developed her kind of 360 areas now, and she's so hard to bowl against. You know, as soon as you're offline, as soon as you're off length, she can clear the ropes as well as anyone. So it's pretty tough not to look past her. But I think in 50 over cricket, it's a tough one to say, really. I think probably a Grace Scribbins. You know, she's not the prettiest batter to watch ever, but she seems to have a fantastic head on her shoulders for such a young player as well, and really has the ability to bat long. I think she scored 180 or something in second grade cricket over in Australia. So yeah, obviously has the ability to bat long and bat the full 50 overs. So I think, yeah, those are probably at the top of the order, the two players that you'd really look at in your analysis meetings, and two players you'd be looking to target.
And then looking a little bit at the game in general, what do you think needs to be done to help replicate the crowds that we're seeing in the 100 in the regional game? Because we're seeing thousands and thousands of people who very clearly have a desire to watch women's cricket, but we're not replicating it at the level which really matters.
Yeah, I think it's probably two things. So the first thing would be more double headers. So that's something we do brilliantly at Lancs, is we have double headers with the men's team. We had it last year and a couple of T20s at Old Trafford, and I think that is the most clear and obvious way to do it. You know, a lot of the time it's just the visibility of women's sport and people not necessarily knowing it's there or not necessarily having the desire to go out and watch their first game. But if it's before a men's game and they catch the last half an hour of it and they realise it's actually pretty damn good these days, they're more likely to come again. And I love playing in the double headers. You know, the men's team is pretty good at staying to watch us play, and we'll always stay and watch them play, and the crowds are a bit bigger and there's a real buzz about it, and it's a real, you know, like there's a massive family atmosphere of the club, and you really feel like you're part of the club and part of the family, and I think that helps to grow that as well. But I think the second thing for me is that advertising and social media, and again growing that visibility. You know, I remember our T20 finals day last year wasn't that well attended, and I didn't see that much kind of buzz and hype around it. Which seems to me it feels like a really easy win. You know, you advertise it a little bit more, you put a little bit more on your social media, you tell people about it, you sell tickets, and that seems like a really easy win to me. So I think those are the two key things for it. I think if people know women's cricket is on, they will come and watch it. You know, the product's there and it's a brilliant spectacle now and the quality's there. So it just needs more people knowing about it.
Agreed. I think it would have been nice to see the finals, which are coming this season, played at probably slightly bigger stadia, because I think that those grounds tend to be better at getting the word out than the smaller counties. But what can you do, eh?
Yeah, it's an ongoing battle, isn't it?
Yeah. And then looking forward to Project Darwin, if you could focus on one thing which worries you about it and one thing which really excites you, what would they be?
I think for me, I don't have any worries about it at all. It doesn't massively affect us at Lancs. You know, we're probably likely to go to Lancashire. I think it'd be crazy if we don't. And nothing will change. You know, even last year we weren't really allowed to because of the ECB, but we called ourselves Lancashire Thunder, and we massively felt part of Lancashire cricket, and that's, you know, we were part of that family, and so for us, not much will change. I guess for teams like maybe a Western Storm or a Sunrisers, it's a little bit more tricky as to where they go, but I think it's only going to be positive. You know, it's so important to have that base and have somewhere that you feel like is your place to train and your place that you belong. for us having our change room at Lancs and having our names on the lockers and our pictures on the walls and having that as our hub is massive. It's so important, and that's kind of become our fortress, I guess, Old Trafford. And I guess that's the exciting thing moving forward, is that the more we are linked with the men's clubs, which I think maybe should have happened in the first place. I don't know. Hindsight's a great thing, isn't it? We'll get more visibility, more sponsorship. Hopefully other teams will be able to go on. I know a few teams have gone on tour this year, but hopefully they'll be able to go on more in the future, like we've been able to. And for us, it's just keep doing what we're doing. Not much will change, but it's exciting. I think as much as I want us to win, and that's where I get competitive. I just want cricket as a whole in this country to be driven forward, and people to be being paid more, and more players to be professionals, and visibility to keep being pushed forward. So the more that can happen, the better for me.
I'd like to say a huge thank you for you to coming on. What? Let's try that again. My brain, honestly, it's too early in the morning. I'd like to say a huge thank you to you for coming on today, Fee.
That's all right, no worries. So thank you for having me.
We're both as bad as each other. I'm super pleased to welcome Kelly Castle from the Sunrisers to the podcast. Thank you so much for coming on, Kelly. First and foremost, a traditional question on the podcast. What made you pick up a bat and ball for the first time?
It was purely because I was in school. I was in primary school, and I had an Australian primary school teacher. Never heard of cricket before at all. And he wanted to bring in cricket, so we had a girls' team. We had a mixed team, but they weren't really that good. But our girls' team ended up doing quite well, and it was back in the day when it was like this quick cricket tournament. And we managed to get all the way through to like these national finals, and that's the reason that I picked up a bat and a ball, really. So yeah.
And then making quite a dramatic jump. But at what point did you think I can reach the highest level of the game and play in this professional environment?
I think like it's probably interesting of girls my age and even girls who are a bit older. Because I remember there wasn't really a pathway. The only way to be a professional cricketer was to play for England. And back then it used to be like Super Fours, and you had sort of like they were testing around like an England under 15 team, and then that jumped to an under 19 team. I remember thinking like if you didn't make the under 19 team, even when you were like 15 years old, like you're never going to make it. So I remember just like I constantly put like ages on it, and I remember like, right, if I'm not playing for England by the time I'm 16, I'm not going to do it. Okay, now I'm not going to do it by the time I'm 17, and which sounds absolutely insane, trying to play for your country at that age, which is obviously what people have done, but also it's quite tough to people. I feel like it's quite an anomaly to be able to do that. And yeah, so then I think it was when regional cricket came out, it was sort of it was, we didn't really know if it was going to happen. If it was, there were sort of rumours going around, and then I think like COVID obviously hit, was the worst thing ever that happened to the world, and but also sort of was the start of professional cricket. So it's one of those, like, COVID was a really rubbish time, but also the start of being a professional cricketer. So it was a really exciting time to know that actually I didn't have to have an age limit anymore to be a professional cricketer, and I don't have to play for England in order to do that. So it was a very stressful time, but also sort of, I guess, shows that just sort of waiting but continuing to just keep believing in the dream to play professional cricket probably pays off.
I mean, you've spoken about it there, but looking at the ECB's decision to transition away from that traditional county structure and go into a very different regional structure, do you think that move was a completely positive one? Do you think it was the right move to step away from that, I guess many would argue, tradition?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, women's cricket needed something to happen. And obviously going into the regional cricket, I think if you look at back then, 4 years ago, women's cricket wasn't in a position to be only led by one county. And I think if you put that to now with what's happening with women's cricket, actually it shows so much yes, you could be like, oh, why didn't they do this 4 years ago? Well, actually, like, they couldn't, because there wasn't the uptake for it, there wasn't the finances for it, there wasn't the crowds for it. So I think it's so positive of what they did of, okay, well, let's create a broader game and put it into regional cricket, and now we can start to go a bit more specific and actually allow individual counties to run it themselves. And I think it was really positive. And if that never happened, I might not have been a professional cricketer, and there's probably many people who it might not have happened to. So yeah, definitely a positive thing for the game.
I definitely agree with you there. I think a lot of people come from the outside and look at it from a quite narrow perspective of, while it's confusing for fans, but I think when you think about the logistical side of things and the financial side of things, it was the necessary move in order to help the game go forward.
Yeah, definitely. And like, I've even thought about it myself of like, oh, why didn't they do that? But actually, it makes, the more you think about it, the more it does make sense of actually, as you say, like, as much as I would have loved women's cricket at the time to be in the position that it is now, like, it wasn't. So I think it's great that now you can sort of see how far women's cricket has come, and actually where it's probably, and it can go really, and just following in women's sport and women's football and how that's all going.
I think stepping away from that slightly and looking at the season, how do you keep yourself motivated when the season reaches its conclusion and there is no cricket to be played?
Great question. To be fair, it's a long season, so it is quite nice to have some downtime. So a lot of the time, like, I try and get away, or like most of us try and get away. I'm all for trying to like do something completely new. So like that could be absolutely anything, and obviously like keeping yourself busy. So I'll go and play any sports, whether that's just going, I don't know, playing badminton with my family, or just doing random things really. But it's probably it's one of those things of when we get time off of like, yes, it's so good having time off, but then you're also like waiting to like get back, and it's like quite hard to find the balance of like, yeah, let's have time off and just sit and chill, and then you're just sat there twiddling your thumbs thinking, oh well, I could go back and train soon. So yeah, but it is always definitely nice to just have time off, and as I say, I'll just try and do random new things really.
And then looking forward to next season, which we're getting very close to now, what are your personal goals for the 2024 season with Sunrisers and then further afield?
So well, as a whole of Sunrisers, like, we want to win trophies, but I think that is actually really possible, and I'm really looking forward to that. For me personally, I've actually had a bit of an injury this winter, so I'm sort of just coming back from that. And to be honest, like, I think for me and most of us, like, we really want to make an impact on the team. Like, this is the last year, or could be the last year, of what Sunrisers looks like. So I think we all want to, sounds really cliche, but like, go out with a bang and really enjoy spending time together, winning trophies, and sort of trying to be the best that we can. But I mean, for me, I try and not take it for granted of just, I want to be a professional cricketer for as long as I can. So at the minute, like, I'm just looking for, okay, well, what does the next contract look like, and how can I really just keep continuing to better myself really. So yeah.
I mean, you say it sounds cliched, but having spoken to players from all the teams, I think everyone's got that same mentality of, it's the last season in our current form. We want to end it with a bang. So I think it's going to be a really competitive and exciting one. And I cannot envision who's going to win what, who's going to end up in what finals, because especially towards the end of last season, it was very competitive in that 50 over stuff. And you got to the final game of the season and nobody knew who was going to qualify. And that's how it should be.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like the way that last season for us was it was very like peaks and troughs, up and down. And then we sort of got to the end of the season, and there was so many of like, well, if we win this and other teams lose this, well, actually we could get through to the finals. And we were really, really close in the 50 over stuff. So it's so exciting. And that's also how it should be. I think like, I think so many people, and this, I don't know whether you want to put this in or not, I don't know, but like, are bored of like Vipers winning so many stuff. Like, everyone's gunning for them. So I think it's really exciting to have that competition and that competitive nature, because everyone wants to win trophies, and as you say, as it's the last year, like everyone's really, really gunning for those final spots, really.
For sure. I mean, I really do not mind who wins this year as long as someone wins who is not Vipers. I need someone to win a trophy which isn't Vipers to make it a little bit more balanced this year.
Definitely. Agreed. Definitely.
And then a bit of a curveball one. Do you have any cricketing icks? Anything which you've seen people do or teammates, etc., which makes you just go, absolutely not?
Oh, wow. Great question. These are all the questions that like I have nothing, and then I'll think of them later. I think, oh, that's a really good one. But I'm just trying to think of like, I think like all the time of like, I always say really stupid ones of like wicket keepers and how they wear short sleeves, and we always take the piss out of that. I actually think like maybe a little bit icky of in the changing room of like people when they get out, this is really bad, when they get out of people like launching stuff. I'm just like, why are you doing that? Like, you don't need to do that. Like, just, yeah, it's frustrating, but just take a moment. Like, you don't need to, don't launch a kit. Maybe that's a little bit icky, I'd say.
Especially if you're the person who's gone into pad up and you're just minding your own business.
Literally the worst thing ever. Or like you're in there padding out, and it's always that awkward conversation. There's normally a couple of you, maybe like a maximum of one or two, and then the other person's like on lookout to see when the person who's just got out is walking in. And it's like, right, you've got approximately 2 minutes before this person comes into the changing room. You better be ready. Either get in or get out. It's basically what the memo is. So yeah, it makes me laugh quite a lot.
And then looking at the team as a whole and Sunrisers, what has your winter training looked like, and how are you preparing for the coming season as a team unit?
Winter training's been really good. We've there's been a few people away, so like Grace Scrivens, she did a season in Oz, and obviously her and Maddie Villiers have been away with England A, so that's been quite exciting. And then we've got a couple of younger girls who are away with England under-19s as well. So I'd say it's sort of been a bit we've had lots of people and then maybe a smaller number of people, but it's been really like focused, and I think it's also allowed players to sort of figure out their roles in the team as well. Before Christmas there was a lot of technical work which I think everyone was really excited to do, and then sort of coming out of that it's been a really good opportunity maybe to not have those players around, to allow people just to sort of figure out where they're at and give people opportunities, really. So probably going into the next couple of weeks of just seeing warm-up games and where people are at will be really exciting.
We can hope that the weather plays its part in those warm-up games, though.
Yeah. Well, yeah, also that, because I have no idea what the weather, the ground is so wet, it's just disgusting.
Yeah, it's grim. Quite lucky I'm based in near Birmingham, so Edgbaston. So they're very lucky with the systems they've got. But when you look at all the other grounds across the country, you just think there is no way there's going to be a game there in April.
That's
so
true.
we can hope.
Say, unless you're Middlesex versus Glamorgan in the county championship and you score over 1,200 runs in their county championship game at Lords, that is ridiculous. So let's just pray. Let's pray for that.
We can hope for that. We can hope for that. And then you've mentioned them previously a little bit, but what are your goals as a team heading into the new season? Silverware, obviously, but on a little bit more of a broader perspective.
I think, yeah, obviously trophies, but I think, to be honest, I actually think maybe a bit too broad, but we all just really want to enjoy it. And as I've said, like, because it's the last season, rather than focusing on what we've spoken a lot about what can we control, and actually the only thing that we can currently control is how we're playing our cricket. So we've spoken a lot about how we want to play our cricket, and I think it's just for us just really trying to execute that. I think the 50 over stuff, we're really sort of onto something really, really great, and I think that's really exciting. And we've spoken a lot about our T20 campaign and how can we really like work on and improve that. And so sort of hoping that definitely in the T20 stuff, we can just make a bit more of a jump up and really try and compete and be in the right mindset for that. And then just continue to sort of figure out our blueprints around it and really try and play cricket the way that we want to play cricket and sort of get people talking about it, really. And I know we've always been the underdogs and people are always saying that, but we sort of, maybe in this last year, we can really like prove how much of a journey we've been on since our very first year. I think that'd be really special to just sort of, not in a rude way of like prove everyone wrong, but ultimately, yeah, prove everyone wrong.
And then looking at a logistical side of things, what does your setup at Sunrisers currently look like? How is your access to facilities? Where are you training most of the time? How's your access to the coaching staff, etc.?
Yeah, so Sunrisers is I think one of the biggest regions. So our region is obviously Essex, Middlesex and Northants. So obviously in the summer for me, I live in Essex, deepest, darkest Essex, near the coast on the deepest, darkest South End. So a home game could be 2 hours away, for example, up in Northants. But in the winter, we're a lot of it based around sort of the Middlesex area in Finchley. And then we've been really, really fortunate since sort of end of February to train at Merchant Taylor School, as they have a tent so we can train outdoors. So yeah, it's been being able to go outside early has been really great. I think the one thing that we sort of all struggle in our region is the travel. So for example, for me, roads are absolute nightmares. So to get into London for anywhere between 9 and 10 o'clock could take me 2 hours, but it also might take me 3 hours. It might take me an hour. So that's probably our sort of struggle, which then I guess moving forward, with it going to more counties, it will sort of help with that. And I think our region is probably one of the areas that struggles most with that. But yeah, in terms of we have access to those, I think we're really fortunate to have access to going outdoors really early. I'm not sure how many other counties or regions get to do that. So that's probably our main selling point for us to be like, yeah, this is really cool. And then just training. We've had Finchley all to ourselves this winter, so that's sort of been our main home and our base for the winter.
I mean, look, I'm someone who has my head around women's regional cricket. I know what's going on, but I was genuinely convinced until the beginning of last season that Northampton belonged to the Blaze. And it blew my mind when Marie Kelly just turned around to me and said, no, it's Sunrisers. And I was like, but Sunrisers are in London and Essex. How are they also in Northampton?
I mean, it is mind blowing, to be honest, because as you say, a home game could be 2 hours away from like some of us, but then obviously like there's quite a few girls who are traveling down from Northants. Like I think Northants is the Midlands. Like that's how I think of it. Like that's the north. So yeah, it is quite mind blowing. But I guess the restructure might have a few things to change around that. So.
I mean, it's definitely looking like the restructure will change that and make it easier one way or the other for you. Looking at some predictions, thinking about Sunrisers first of all, who are you backing to really be in the runs for you this season?
I think it might be quite a big year for a few people. I think watching Cords bat in the nets is literally insane, and someone I think in the team I do not want to bowl to her in the nets, because I think every single ball is going to come back and hit me in the face. Like, she is unbelievably strong. Everything is just unbelievably good. So I'm actually really hoping for her. I know last year she was in the runs and it was a really good year, but I'm really hoping that she has a really standout year, because I think with the hard work that she puts in, I really think she deserves it. And there's obviously other girls coming through as well. Someone like Jodie Grucock, who had such an amazing year last year. She's worked on her game incredibly hard as well. So, and also then being awarded going to Sri Lanka with the under-19. So those two have probably worked some of the hardest. So trying to see it being rewarded would be really great.
Then looking on the flip side of things and looking at wickets, who do you think is going to take a lot of wickets this year?
I'd obviously say myself, but I think again, with how obviously regional cricket works and full-time players and pay-to-play players, one of our opening bowlers, Kate Coppy, like the fact that she's a pay-to-play player, she is a lawyer by day and then a cricketer by the weekend, and she works incredibly hard to do that. And I think, again, coming back to just being rewarded with the hard work that she's put in throughout the winter whilst obviously juggling a full-time job, I think her at the top opening the bowling, and just seeing how hard she's worked, I think she'll be hopefully in the wickets this year.
Then you've mentioned some of the younger talent in the runs, etc. But looking at a potential breakthrough star, and it also doesn't have to be a youngster, someone who you potentially think hasn't got a lot of credit in the past, who you think really could come up this year.
Mm-hmm. I think probably, you always go younger, but I'm going to say Joey Gardner, because again, someone who has worked very hard this winter, probably goes a bit unnoticed, and she's probably one of the most reliable people to have in your team, both on and off the field. And I think just the amount of energy she brings to our team and her skills is incredible, and I think she's such a gem to have in the team. So I think she goes sometimes flies under the radar a bit, but I think any team would be so lucky to have her, and I'm really glad and lucky and fortunate that we have her in our team.
And looking at a potential all-round player of the season.
Great question. It's really hard because I feel like we've got everyone is just an all-round great player. So even again, I'm not going to go young. I'm going to go someone like Amara Carr again. As I say, everyone's worked bloody hard this winter, but she's probably someone who flies under the radar. And being a keeper, I think, is a really hard job to have anyway. And I think she last year sort of went through a period again of figuring out her role and where she sort of fits in the team. And I think she's really found that. And I think watching it, she's such a reliable person to have. I think sometimes she goes a bit unnoticed because you just assume she's going to stand behind the stumps and just take every catch, or stumping that she does anyway. So I think someone like her, I think, as an all-round great human and great cricketer is really great to have.
And then the question which everyone is asking, and I know you've mentioned it previously and I know what the answer is going to be, but can Vipers' dominance be smashed?
I really hope so. And I think I would love to know, I'd love to know what makes them so successful, but also I'd love to know how they're feeling going into the season, probably knowing that they've got a bit of a target on their back, because everyone's gunning for them. And I think for us, we always take it great because I think I might be completely lying, but we've actually had quite a good success rate against Vipers. Last year, we beat them in both 50 over games, I'm pretty sure. So I think for us, we're Vipers, I mean, why are they winning stuff? But if we can continue that, and I think even, and people have come close as well. And I think this year it will just be so interesting to see how it all unfolds. And I think maybe you never know, maybe the pressure of winning too much might get to them, but we'll see.
And then when I've asked this question to most of the other teams, they've said Sunrisers, but who are another team that you'll be keeping an eye on as potential dark horses overall this season?
I think someone I think a Western Storm could be a dark horse, just based on the fact that they've signed Amanda J. Wellington. I think that is an unbelievable signing to have this year. So I think sometimes they're a team that it depends on the day, but sometimes seem to just scrape through a win without you realising how that's even happening. So I think them obviously adding that to their ranks is a really good signing for them. So I think they've got the players to win games. So I think, probably a Western Storm might be a team to watch.
I can't even begin to express how much of a double take I did when I saw that announcement about Amanda Jade Wellington.
Absolutely. I saw it on Instagram and I was like, what? I was like, that's unbelievable. So fair play to them for getting that signing.
And then keeping on other teams, who are players from those other regions who you'll be keeping an eye on in the T20 stuff and also the 50 over stuff?
Oh gosh. This is testing my knowledge of other players now. To be fair, I think there's quite a few younger girls coming through. Just looking at the under-19 stuff. Dav Perrin from Spark. She looks in really good form. So someone like her coming through, probably someone you don't really or haven't really thought about, but I don't know, she just seems like she's a complete all-round player coming through. So probably someone like her is probably someone to watch out for, I think.
I agree. She's also a genuine all-rounder. Like, you watch her in the field and she's absolutely rapid, and she can bat, she can bowl, spin and pace.
I think I remember the first time I played against her, really, really randomly, I was filling in for the academy, and I was playing a game for them, and she was playing, and it was the first time I saw her, and then she started an over and she was bowling spin, and I was just like, oh, and she was just bowling wide after wide, and then she was like, oh, can I change the pace? Walked up, marked a run out, and she literally bowled me 3 Yorkers in a row, and I literally turned around to her, I ran up the other end, and I went, bin off the spin. Genuinely, like, bin it off, just bowl seam, because like to just suddenly run up and bowl 3 Yorkers in a row with probably, I don't even know if she meant to do it or not, I don't know, but like at like a decent pace as well. It just made me laugh. I was just like, just bin the spin off, and just like, I mean, it's great to have that you can do both, but that was a couple of years ago now. But yeah, like she's definitely someone to watch coming through.
Looking at the game in general, this is a big one, so I'll let you think about it. But what do you think needs to be done to replicate the crowds which we're seeing in the 100 in these regional games?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot that can be done. I think with the way that women's cricket's going, I think having a bit more of an identity, and again, the more money and finances and funding that goes into it, the more counties and regions are going to be able to do it. And with it going to county cricket, I think it actually allows one specific county to take that, and I really, really hope that whichever counties get it sort of have that as part of their plan of like, right, we're going to treat both men's and women's cricket the same. We want to put near enough the right amount and the same amount of funding in as we can to just create that buzz around it. And I think like as long as people continue that buzz around it, that's what's going to get the crowds in. Obviously with the 100, it's interesting because obviously it's franchise cricket, and people, even though it's like it's teams that you have no idea who are, it creates such a buzz around it because it's new and exciting. And I think it's just finding that formula in now what's going to be, well, next year county cricket, well, actually, like, you're going to have an identity and it's going to be with one county. Okay, well, how do we make that the best that we can? And yeah, I mean, it is still like advertising, and the more people can see it, the more people are going to be there. And I think that's a really, really big key part in it. So I hope whoever eventually starts running cricket sort of sees that and allows that to happen.
And then finally, looking at Project Darwin, if you could focus on one thing which really excites you about it as a project, and then potentially another thing which worries you, what would they be?
I think I've sort of mentioned it, but just around like one county having ownership and really like pushing for women's cricket and actually like having that identity as sort of one club. And I think a lot of it has been pushed around like having equality. And we've spoken a lot about it around like, well, what does equality look for us? And I think it's just exciting that there's going to be more money. It's going to be more viable to be a career for people my age continuing for longer, but then also for the younger girls coming through to knowing that like there might be rookie contracts involved, there might be different contracts, you might be able to do this study alongside it, and it'll be so much easier. So I think it's really exciting, and exciting, like the people and the sponsors who will want to get involved in it. Like I can't see, if I was a business, why wouldn't you want to get involved in women's sport and women's cricket with where it's going? Like I think that's so exciting. So yeah, that's something that really excites me. I think probably the thing that worries me, I guess the current worry, is the fact that the decision will get made 3 days before the season starts. That's quite a stressful thing. But also I think probably just like the uncontrollable of like the what ifs of, okay, what if these counties get it and they do something that they don't do something that they said they're going to do, or it doesn't like take off as much as, and people start to panic around it. I think but that's quite an uncontrollable thing to worry about. But I'd say that's probably the main worry around it, of like, well, what if this doesn't work? I can't see why it wouldn't work, but yeah, I think it's a really, really exciting time, and I think like everyone's so willing and wanting it to happen, and just wanting to just sort of put women's cricket a bit more on a pedestal and actually just really boost it. I think everyone's sort of ready for that to happen. So yeah, it is really exciting.
I'd like to thank you again for coming on and talking to me today.
No worries at all.
I'm super pleased to welcome Katie to the podcast. Thank you so much for coming on.
Anytime.
First and foremost, what made you pick up a bat and ball for the first time?
Probably playing with my dad in the garden with my brother. My dad played when he was younger and we watched Test cricket growing up, and then one day Tom and I decided that we thought it'd be pretty cool to have a go. So probably definitely that, and then watching the likes. I think Wasim Akram was probably the first bowler I really sort of took a liking to as a left armer. Yeah, so probably from there really.
And then quite a jump, but when did you think I can reach a pro level here? I'm very good at cricket.
It was probably quite late. I played a bit of Super League, but I was quite young. I was only 16. And then it wasn't probably until I was sat on a sofa at Loughborough by Mark Robinson, the England head coach at the time, and he asked if I fancied coming to India to be part of the first team squad. And it probably wasn't until that moment on the couch that it dawned on me that actually I could be all right here and it could be a career. So it was definitely that moment that kind of made me really sit back and go, wow. I remember phoning my parents up afterwards going, you're never going to believe this, like this is mad. So yeah, probably that moment.
And then moving away from that slightly and looking at the regional game, obviously we've got Project Darwin coming up, we're stepping away from it. But looking to when in 2020 the ECB decided to shake things up and go into that regional system, do you think that was the right decision? Do you think they could have gone a slightly different way with it?
I think it's been unbelievable success that the regional setups had. I think, there's a lot of people smarter than me that could probably argue about it back and forth what the right thing is to do, but I can only see what's in front of me. And I think this is a success of what's happened in the last few years. The people that are getting that hands-on experience and then stepping up to the next level, whether that's franchise cricket or international level, and holding their own and looking like they've been there for years. I think that kind of shows you whether something is working or not, whether people are making that step up to the next level. And I think we have started to see a steady flow of people going to the next level. So for me, I think that makes a success, and the amount of professionals that have happened, and that number's only getting bigger. So that was a big thing for women's cricket, wasn't it? It was to get more professionals, and more professionals are happening. So I think those two things for me would say that it's a success, but there's always room for disagreement.
You made the move to the Central Sparks at the beginning of last season. What motivated that move? Why did you think that Birmingham should be your next home?
Well, it's a really cool city, so I've enjoyed my time here so far. But probably from a personal note, Lloyd Tennant, who's head coach, never say it to his face, but he's arguably one of the best bowling coaches in the country in the women's game. And I'd seen kind of like what he'd been able to do with sort of Izzy Wong, MR, or Grace Potts, kind of those people. Ellie Anderson's coming through at the moment. It's kind of how he sort of helped them and shaped them. And I felt like I wanted a little bit of that. And I felt he was the best person for me to be able to I'd had a few injuries, wanted to sort of get back to the level that I want to achieve to. And I felt he was the right person to help me along the way. So that was from sort of that side of things. But then also I knew a few of the girls already. So I had some relationships kind of already there. So it felt like a really good starting point to kind of settle down and sort of really try and, win some trophies, because it'd be pretty cool. Obviously last year didn't work out quite as well. We were in the running for a long time, and then just back end of the season we probably lost a little bit of momentum with the 100, breaking it up because we were flying beforehand. But yeah, so really excited for this year because I think we've got a pretty good chance.
And then stepping away from that, how do you keep yourself motivated when the season reaches its conclusion and there is no cricket to be played for quite a few months?
I think it's a really good question because it's a long old winter. I think for me personally, I can only speak for myself, is I feel like with the injuries that I've had, I've almost like missed out on getting better when I was younger. It may sound really silly, I don't know. But it's almost like, right, okay, well, I've got X amount of time that I can absolutely graft away to try and improve. And I think with the time that I've spent pretty much sitting on the sofa, not being able to do anything, I don't wake up every day, don't get me wrong, and want to go to the gym at 8 a.m. or whatever it is. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, that's the thing that I always fall back to, is that I've had that time away, forced time away, and that is a big driver for me, is that I want to get better, I want to be the best that I can be, and then I can only hold myself accountable.
Your first season with Sparks last year was very positive. It saw you take 22 wickets and score quite a few runs as well. So what are your personal goals for the coming season with Sparks and then further afield?
To do the same but better. I was quite happy with how it went. I felt it was my first full season in quite a while, so I felt that I'd probably run out of a little bit of gas towards the end. So that's something that I've worked quite hard over the winter to try and get in a better position for that, to just deal with the workloads that are now in the women's game that I haven't been able to do previously. And yeah, so I've got a few scores last year, but it's to try and make those bigger. I think it's to try and go on and sort of try and score runs consistently, but also try and sort of, I'm striving for those bigger scores, trying to look to get those 80 plus scores. 100 be awesome, but yeah, to try and really make those sort of 30s 40s into big scores. And then I think for me personally, bowling wise, I'm going to probably go after the new ball a little bit. I think what I could bring with a new ball, swinging it into a right hander, would add something to the Sparks that we don't quite have at the moment. So that's something I know what I can do, sort of middle overs, death kind of thing. So that's something that I'm probably looking to do a little bit more of this year, which will be slightly different from last year.
And then a bit of a fun one. Do you have any cricketing icks? Anything your teammates or opposition have done which have just absolutely not?
Yeah, I don't like hair down. I think keepers, unless they can't, they should have long sleeves. I know when I was younger, there was obviously you couldn't get a long sleeve shirt, so that was fine. But like put a tuber grip on or something, I don't know. I'd say those two are pretty up there. Bowling with a hat on.
Oh yeah, it really upset me when Erin Burns did that last season.
Yeah, but she's quite good. She gets away with it. Anyway, she's at Diamonds now, so could go back to abusing her for it.
And then looking at the team as a whole, what has your winter training looked like and how are you preparing for the coming season as a team unit?
I think we've trained really, really hard. We came back sort of in after the summer last year, quite frustrated with how we'd ended. Obviously, it's never fun to kind of fall away from the pack. So there was quite a lot of sort of motivation to do things better this year. And I think everyone knew that they had to knuckle down and work hard and sort of put that graft in to hopefully get the rewards further down the line. So that was definitely the attitude that I felt was quite spread across the squad. There wasn't anyone that didn't feel probably very similar. And I think in terms of winter, we've been based at Edgbaston. We've gone into like a dome, so we've been able to do fielding and stuff in Coventry. So the facilities have been great. So feel like we've left no stone unturned, to be honest. We went off to India on a pre-season tour, which was really good. It was the first tour Central Sparks have done, which is, just a really good sign of where we're going as a squad. And that was a really good eye opener. I think there was only 3 of us that had been to India before, so it was a good challenge for the squad. But I mean, we played, I think, 5 games. We won, I think, 3 out of 5, so we're pretty happy with that. We played the Diamonds out there, which was nice to have almost opposition that was foreign to us, but also an opposition that we would be coming up against, and fared quite well. So I think there was a lot of positives. There was, I think everyone scored runs, which is always nice. I'm not sure how we're going to go over the next couple of weeks, playing on a few puddings with the weather. So hopefully it'll be okay. But yeah, it felt like I was really impressed with where everyone was at, because you always have those slight nerves before you get your first couple of games out, how you've gone, how's the winter really gone, kind of thing, because you definitely find out pretty quick. But yeah, I think the squad's in a really good place. I mean, I mentioned Ellie very briefly earlier, but she had a really, really good tour. I'm hoping that, I mean, there's 4 seamers that have played ahead of her last year, so she's going to do well to get in, but I wouldn't put it past her. So yeah, and obviously we've had Dav and Pavs at the under 19s, and they've gone really well, and I hope that experience for them has helped them grow as people and as cricketers, and to really give us some depth as a side. So yeah, I think we're travelling really well, and I think we're itching to get outside, and we've had to train inside for the last couple of weeks since we've been back from India, which has been incredibly frustrating. But hopefully we've got a friendly against Storm in a few days' time, so hopefully we'll get out there and have a run around.
And then building on what you've said there, what are your goals as a team unit heading into the new season? What do you hope to achieve with this Sparks group?
Simple: to win. We want to win. We're going to go into every game trying to win that game, because it's also incredibly important to remember that we can have that end goal, but it's what we do before that. So I think it's treating every game individually and not looking too far ahead. I mean, you can always look back in hindsight, but I think we probably got a little bit too far ahead last year. Whereas I think this year, if we stay pretty disciplined, and sort of take each game as it comes and concentrate on what we can do in front of us, I think we'll be in a pretty good place to hopefully go a few better this year.
First of all, how do you approach the youth in the group? And second of all, what makes the bowling at Sparks so good?
I think we've got youth in the group, but that's incredibly exciting. I think at 25, I turned 25 a couple of days ago, and that makes me one of the older members of the squad, which I'm not quite sure how I feel about. But yeah, I think the really exciting thing is how good they are. Like, they are very young, but they're extremely good. And I think it's almost the experience that they also have as well. It's not like I mean, they've got a few games under their belts and they're only going to get better. So that's the really exciting thing about the youth. And they've almost got no fear. They can kind of rock up, and, pressure doesn't always hit them the same as it does for maybe the older members. I don't know. It's very much a personal thing. But yeah, they do seem to have a bit of a no fear approach, which is awesome. And I think bowling wise, I mean, the biggest thing I can say is I can't believe Georgia Davis wasn't picked up in the 100 draft. Her numbers last year were phenomenal, and having a sort of a pretty close front seat to see where, I was at Cal for most of the time, and she was bowling pretty well, because it didn't come to me very often. And if you're a spinner and it's not going to Cal very often, you're bowling all right, aren't you? So yeah, I think we've got the young, we've got G as a senior person, but then we've got Hannah Baker, we've got Pavs as the younger sort of spin duo, and Bake's going to be good. She's going to be real good. She's done so much already. So yeah, I think this year could be a pretty good year for her. And I think with the seamers, you can say we've got a lot of seamers, but we all bring something different. I think obviously Em and Potsy are slightly taller, but Potsy swings it away. Em's more of a seam bowler, and he gets it into you, and you can say, "Get off me." So yeah, and I think we got myself and Izzy that are a little bit of extra pace that sometimes you don't quite know what you're going to get, but that we're wicket takers, and you're always in the game with us. So I think when you've got that complements each other quite nicely, I think, and that if one of them doesn't get you, the other one is. And the good thing about us is that we've got probably 6 people that could get you. So it's not an individual game, it's a team game, and it means that collectively, hopefully, a few of us have a day out and we'll win more games than not. So I think that's pretty much sums it up.
And then moving on to some predictions. First of all, who are you backing to really be in the runs for Sparks this season?
In the runs, There's a few candidates. We obviously had Freb score 100 last year, and I think she could follow that up with a couple this year. I think Jonah, and she'd probably be the first person to say that she probably had a leaner spell than she wanted to last year, and I think she'll come back with an absolute vengeance. She's looking pretty good in the nets, so I'm excited to see her get stuck in at the start of the season. So I think there's a few people that could go on to go big. I think I want to throw myself in there. I've been chirping to Lloyd all winter to get me up the batting order. So if that happens, then I better back it up. But yeah, no, I'm excited for our batting order this year. I think there's quite a lot of competition for places in our batting order. I know we talk about our bowling. Our bowling gets a lot of attention, but I genuinely think we could change our batting order 5 or 6 times and we'd still have one of the best in the country.
And then looking at the flip side of things, the wicket.
I'm gonna back Potsy. I think the way she bowled with the new ball last year was, she was one of the best new balls in the comp, and I think she's put on a yard over the winter. I haven't seen too much of it. She's actually been away quite a bit with England A and stuff, but I saw her a couple of days ago in training, and she looked like she was bowling well, had good rhythm. So I think Potsy will be up there. I'm excited to see how she's gone. I think she's lengthened her run up as well a little bit. So yeah, I'm excited for her. I think this could be a good year for her. The England A stuff's gone pretty well. So yeah, I think she's all the best compliment I can give her is that she's always nagging away at you. Like you just can't shake her off, and that is meant in the absolute best way because she's just always there or thereabouts, and she'll always, when we need a wicket, that you can count on her to come in and create chances. So that always puts you up high, doesn't it?
A potential breakthrough star.
I think Pavs. I think the way she came into the side, because she came in about maybe halfway through the season last year, and the way that she settled in, and she probably wasn't bowling as much as she wanted. I don't think she bowled for a good few games, but what she brought with the bat was incredible. Just the ability to turn the game around and put pressure back on the bowlers was something that I really admired. And the way of her fielding, she's infectious. I've got a little friend to kind of talk about fielding with, which is quite nice because I enjoy it quite a bit. And she's really willing to learn. She's always asking questions and got quite an openness to kind of learn something new, which is, you're halfway there if you can do that. So yeah, so I'm back in Pavs.
And then thinking about a potential player of the season.
I'm going to go, I think Bethan Ellis, purely just because the way like she came in last year and she was just so dependable. And I think, she can sometimes go under the radar a little bit because like you've got 4 seamers that, are the frontline seamers, but then she's coming in and chipping away and taking wickets for fun. And then similar batting wise, you've got your bigger names of sort of Amy Jones when she's back, Eve Jones, Amy Campbell kind of thing. But she scored runs too. She's great in the field. And I think whether she gets player of the season, I don't know, but she'll definitely be one of our most valuable players for sure.
Definitely is an underrated gem in your setup. And then I also think I know what the answer to this question is going to be, but it's something everyone is asking. Can the Vipers' dominance be smashed? Will we see different names on one or preferably both trophies at the end of this season?
Yeah, I genuinely do. I think we gave them a run for their money in the games in terms of head-to-head last year, and I think they're a very good side, don't get me wrong, and they know how to win. And I think that's almost probably the difference is that I think with the experience of Lottie as head coach and the players that they do have, even when there's a few people unavailable, is that they know how to win. And I think that's something that sides can almost learn from. And it's definitely something that we as a team have. You never probably outwardly learn things from the other team and kind of say it out loud, but I know that there'll be like little things that you just pick up. But yeah, no, I do think that they're beatable, and I think when someone's beatable, they're vulnerable, and you only have to win a few more games, and then you're right in there. And then I reckon on a finals day, anything can happen.
I agree. I also think obviously they've lost Anya Shrubsole, who's retired, and I think she was very important in that group. So it'll be interesting to see how they fare without her and her experience. And then another team that you'll be keeping an eye on as potential dark horses throughout the summer.
I don't know if they're dark horses or not, but I think the Blaze. We actually lost a couple of times to them last year. They're almost our bogey team a little bit. We were always very competitive games. Always quite up there in terms of the feistiness. So I look forward to playing them. I think they look forward to playing us. So I think we've actually got them first game of the season at home at Edgbaston. So I think that'd be a really, really good game to kick off the campaign and hopefully get some positive momentum from that game, because we'll definitely take some from a win there.
100%. Then staying with the other regions, a player from another region you think will stand out in the T20 stuff and then also the 50 over stuff?
On the spot, I think T20, Seren Smell from Lancs. I think she is going to be very good. Her ball striking is up there. She's a pretty good keeper as well, from what I've seen. She hasn't probably kept as much as perhaps she wants, because you've got Ellie Threlkeld, who's arguably top 3 keeper in the country. But I think, definitely baton wise, we'll get to see probably a lot more from her, whether that is T20, 50 over cricket. But yeah, definitely T20 is you always have a little look out, don't you, for how other players are getting on. She's always someone that I hope does well. Not against us, but I do always hope that she's gone all right. 50 over cricket. I think you've got the likes of probably Grace Scrivens, because she's kind of, you look at her and you almost want more from her. I think she's got the ability to be so good. And I'm just waiting for her to really kick on and just score runs for absolute fun at that sort of like next level. So I'd like her to have a really strong 50 over comp. Again, when you look at players that kind of you want to see do well, and she's definitely one of them. But yeah, I think she's got the potential to be super good. So yeah, she scores again, not against us, but be nice to see her. And she's obviously captain now as well, so it'd be interesting at a young age how she goes. I mean, she fared really well the back end of the season from the outside looking in. So yeah, so they'd probably be my two people.
And then looking at the game in general, what do you think needs to be done to help replicate the crowds that we're seeing in the 100 in the regional game?
I think the exposure. I think there's a few more double headers this year, as a whole. There's a few more double headers. I think that's the way to go. I think because we almost with the 100 we stumbled on it because of COVID, because they were meant to be separate and then they became together. And I think that was the best thing for the 100, and I think it could be the best thing for regional cricket as well. And I think it will help. Obviously, with what's happening in the next couple of years and everything, it'll be probably easy logistics wise. That's again way above my pay grade. But I think the double headers will make a massive difference, because it gets bums on seats, and women's cricket has a beautiful way of, once they do get bums on seats, they stay, and then suddenly they bring a few more people with them. So I think hands down that's the exposure, whether you do it with double headers, whether you get it on TV more, however you do it. And I know that everything costs money, but I think in the long run, and even the short run, we've seen how much of a success the 100's been. And I think people would be silly to not start believing in it.
And then finally, looking at Project Darwin, which is obviously coming next year, if you could focus on one thing which really excites you about the prospect of it, and one thing which is potentially a little bit worrying, what would they be?
I think personally, and for Sparks, it's to be merged. And I mean, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think we'll be with Warwickshire. I think that's probably their strongest candidate for it. And I think having been based there, but obviously been elsewhere as well, their facilities are great. They also they're welcoming. You actually already have sort of small relationships with the men's players, with the men's staff. You see them around. A few of them come and sling for us and sort of have a little bit of mixing anyway. So I think that will only go strength from strength. We'll have a little bit more crossover. And I think, we've seen kind of the success of like Lancs, for example. They're a really good example of how they've almost kind of sort of become that one team. And I think that's quite a powerful thing, to have that one team mentality and to kind of have everyone together. So I think that's the thing that I'm probably most excited for. I think the thing I'd be probably a little bit, and it'd be speaking for other people, would actually be if people move in their region, if, and kind of how that works logistics wise, and, how far they've got to travel and kind of like all of that. I think the first year could be a little bit, catch a few people out to try and work out what they do. Just in the sense of, like, I don't know, like Storm's a prime example of, I don't know what's going to happen there, but if you ended up in Taunton, that's a long way from sort of Cardiff or Bristol or wherever it is, or if you come from sort of Gloucester area and have to go. So I think I think, the London situation is, whether it's 5 miles, but 50 minutes kind of thing. So I think the first year will just settle down in terms of kind of moving. And I mean, I've moved recently, so I'm hoping that we don't get moved north, because I've just come south. So, but yeah, I think that'll be it's just kind of seeing how the dust settles. And then, but I think cricket wise, I think there's too much to be excited about to be too nervous about things.
I'd like to thank you again for coming on today and chatting to me about all things cricket.
No worries. Been a pleasure.
I'm super pleased to welcome Chloe Hill of the South East Stars to the podcast. Thank you so much for coming on, Chloe.
No, it's all good. Pleasure to be here.
First and foremost, what made you pick up a bat and ball for the first time?
Oh God. Probably having a dad and 2 older brothers in the game. So I think it was just natural that I was the young one out of the 2 brothers who both played cricket at the time, and dad did as well. So yeah, it's just natural to pick up a bat.
At what point did you think I can reach the highest level of the game here?
I mean, obviously for myself, there wasn't really, the top level of the game was only county cricket and then England women. So to have the domestic game in its 4th season now, probably the first year of the domestic season, I actually thought, wow, like women can make a living, or a career, not just playing for England, like they can do it for a professional domestic team.
You've touched on it there, but how was that transition from the county into the regional game in 2020 for you? I know you were initially at the Central Sparks.
Yeah, to be honest, I think it was all fine. I think initially it was a mixture of Worcestershire and Warwickshire players who already knew each other. So it was quite easy really to get going. And then it was obviously nice to meet players from Staffordshire and Shropshire in and around that team as well. But yeah, I think it was quite easy really transitioning going into it. I guess it was just more cricket for us in the women's game.
And now, changing the topic slightly, how do you keep yourself motivated when the season reaches its conclusion and there is no cricket to be played?
Perfect. Right, so the month of October, we all get off anyway as cricketers in the women's game, especially with how the structure is. So October for us is sort of like a recharge your batteries, go on holiday, forget about cricket. But then we're straight back in November, which I guess is that horrible month of fitness testing. So yeah, the month of November is definitely where the cricket season is missed the most, I'd say.
Last season, you went on loan to the Stars from the Southern Vipers. What is it that made you decide that they are where you want to play your cricket full time this season?
I guess the saying of like find the right environment for yourself to develop and grow in the right place for you. I think certainly over the years I've learned that quite a lot. And for me, going on loan to Stars and seeing like their brand of cricket, their environment, just how they all do everything as a team, as one. Yeah, I just knew that environment is where I want to be, and somewhere where like I'm a bit later on in my cricket career. So yeah, it's somewhere where I want to be and just enjoy cricket now.
Then building on that slightly, what are your personal goals for your 2024 season with the Stars and then further afield?
Yeah, I guess with the Stars, it's they've always been a team. They're thereabouts in the 50 over comp. I know obviously last year they reached the playoffs against Vipers, which I was included in, and then this season just gone the playoffs obviously against the Blaze again, which I was involved in. So it's just like, can the Stars cross that line and get to the 50 overs final and maybe go the whole way? Because definitely with the talent and the depth in the group, I reckon we can go that way. And then T20, like the Stars, I think have been renowned for playing that positive brand of cricket. And I think when everyone fires, I think it's such an exciting T20 team to be a part of.
I mean, Stars are someone who, one of the questions I ask later on about what other teams you'll be looking out for, Stars are one which have come up a lot alongside Sunrisers as teams who genuinely could go all the way this season if they have the results go their way, which they need to. So it will definitely be an interesting one.
Yeah, definitely.
And then what has your winter training look like, and how are you preparing for the season as a team unit?
Yeah, God, our winter preparations, I think, have been probably one of the most exciting winter preparations I've been a part of. I mean, we went to Abu Dhabi in February, playing games outside. The Blaze were out there alongside us. So, yeah, it's exciting that we had another regional team, but it probably would have been nice to play a bit more cricket against other teams that we're not going to come up against. And then coming back from Abu Dhabi the whole month of March, we've been in the marquee outside on grass wickets. So, yeah, I think it's just that early exposure. And then, training over the winter. We have quite long days, but they're very like good practical days where all the girls are in together, we're training together, focusing on our skills. Fitness is always a top one for the girls over the winter. And I think going into that first game of the season, I think we'll be ready.
This mic is not my friend today. Yeah, for sure. And then you've mentioned it briefly previously, but what do you think the Stars need to do to help get over the line in those pressure moments this season, and therefore potentially go all the way and lift that trophy?
Oh, I think that's a tricky one, because I think it's just like finding your form on the day. Like, we know what every single player in that team is capable of, and if everyone fires, I think it'd be quite terrifying. I think obviously the luck of the draw with batting, you only get one chance. So when you're out, unfortunately, you can't go in and go again. Whereas like bowling, if you have one bad over, you can come back and go again, sort of thing. But I think if everyone fires and just backs our skills that we've been practicing over the winter, I think it'll be quite an exciting season for the Stars.
I definitely agree with you there. And then looking at a logistical side of you, what does your setup at Stars currently look like? How is your access to facilities, to coaches, and where do you train most of the time?
Yeah, I mean, so we're based at Beckenham. We've got the whole indoor facility there, which is like our home base over the winter. And it's very much South East Stars environment. The change rooms are ours, the gyms ours, the hall where we train is ours. And like everyone at that ground, going from the cleaners to the caretakers to the ground staff, like they all very much know that South East Stars are here, and it's just like one big community sort of thing. And then we also have access to the Oval, where we train in the marquee. So scheduling alongside the men, which has been quite good. So I think that's been scheduled really well, where we're either in one morning or they're in the morning. It's never someone has the graveyard shift. It's spread out quite nicely. And coaching staff and facilities that we've had, I mean, have been amazing. We've always had great contact time with the coaches, like really good support. I think something massively that I've noticed this year is just like the women's health support that I've had at Stars, which I know previous teams haven't had that really. So just like looking into little things, and it's exciting really.
Moving on to making some predictions. So first and foremost, obviously, I know you'll want to be up there yourself, but who are you backing to be in the runs for Stars this season?
Runs, probably get ADR. I reckon she'll be up there. Phoebe Franklin. Obviously, she had an injury last year. She's come back this season, and watching her train over the winter, she can hit the ball very hard. Obviously, we saw Paige explode last year, getting 200s quite early on in the Rachel. So yeah, I think those three definitely will be up there with the runs. And I mean, I expect quite a lot of the girls to be scoring 50s plus each week. Someone's going to step up each week, different that we know in that team. So yeah, it'd be exciting to see.
And looking at the flip side of that, who do you think will be in the wickets?
I think there's so many, like literally could say so many. Obviously, we've got the youngsters like Alexa, left arm seamer, exciting talent. If we get Tash back, obviously she's been back from injury, so again another left arm senior seamer to work alongside Lex. I think that'd be exciting prospect. And then we've got like the spinners section as well, so like Cal, Gregor, Bethan, Miles. So yeah, I think it's just going to be exciting in general. I can't really predict who's going to get it because I'd say all of them.
That's fair enough. That's quite a theme with the wicket side of things across the regions. And then a potential breakthrough star, someone, either one of the youngsters who's already involved in the first team stuff or someone from the academy you think could potentially come through.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I guess we've seen the 100 draft and we saw that Tilly got picked up. She hasn't made her senior debut yet at the Stars. So I guess she's definitely someone to look forward to. She's an exciting left-arm spinner. She came away with us on tour to Abu Dhabi, and she's just keen to learn and develop her cricket. So she's definitely someone that's exciting to see what's going to happen in the season.
And then looking at a potential player of the season all round, obviously you can name a few because that's quite a big question.
God, there's so many all-rounders in the team at Stars that can perform. So I mean, I think obviously ADR tends to have a fabulous season with the bat and ball. Again, probably will name Phoebe. I mean, in the T20 last year, pre her injury, she won the PCA Player of that Month. So seeing her back with the bat and ball, I think it's going to be a really exciting season for her. Paige obviously had an exceptional season with the Stars last year. Yeah, we've got so many all-rounders that I think I could pick several.
And then moving to look at the other regions, what is another team that you'll be keeping an eye on as a potential dark horse overall to have a great season?
Yeah, I think it's quite easy to say Sunrisers really because of how they have like what the outcome's been in the previous years. And just seeing like their last 5 or 6 games at the back end of last season, like how exciting they looked. Obviously they came up to finish 4th in the table, I think, in the Rachel in the end. And I think when all of them performed, they're a really strong group. I just think obviously they just haven't had the luck over the previous years. Diamonds look quite exciting with their youngsters. I feel like they've had a right change in Swift in players. I know obviously the first 2 seasons we saw them in the 50 over final, but they were quite like a mature senior side. So seeing the young talent coming through there, I think that'd be another exciting team.
I definitely agree with you there. And then looking at a player or players from other regions in the T20 and 50 over stuff, I won't ask you separately because that's a big one, who you'll be keeping an eye on. Who are you thinking?
Oh, it's a big question.
Big one, yeah.
I know at Storm they've got a young keeper batter that took over, I think, halfway through the season, and I guess that's an exciting prospect. Like myself, when I look at keepers, obviously, like we know what Bess and all the other regions do, like keeper wise. Oh God, I don't know. I'm expecting someone like Cordelia Griffiths from Sunrisers to have like a big season with the bat because like we've seen her go. Like I know what a talented batter she's like, so it'd just be exciting to see her like score a ridiculous amount of runs.
I reckon that's a really good shout, That's the first time I've heard her name mentioned, but that's quite a good one.
You can cut out the stuff before it then.
And then Looking at the game in general, another big one. What do you think needs to be done to help replicate the crowds which we're seeing in the 100 in the regional game?
Yeah, I guess there's obviously the whole dilemma and situation going on with Project Darwin that some people are for, some people are against. Seeing it from the player's perspective, I think having that identity with the men under one county, I think that will probably help. Especially like the first class counties, having that support sort of thing. Yeah, I guess that's probably your main answer, like trying to get the men's following by having the same identity and being like as one team instead of a region or like a partner of that first class county.
And then finally, looking at what you've just said a little bit, if you could focus on one thing which excites you about Project Darwin and one thing which worries you about Project Darwin, what would they be?
I think the one thing that excites me is that there's potentially going to be a full team or a full squad of contracted players. And I think that just gives like the women the security. I mean, at the moment, you've obviously got a certain amount on contracts, a certain amount on pay as you play. And those pay as you play girls obviously have to work alongside it, and sort of like their cricket like commitments get into training obviously aren't as great as someone who's a full-time cricketer. So yeah, to be able to say, look, here's a squad of 15 or so fully contracted players, I think that's really exciting. And I guess, oh God, what am I concerned about? I guess just false promises. We obviously don't know what's gone on in the what's the right word? Like the applications from these counties. We don't know sort of like what their main promises are. So I guess whatever's been promised, just to make sure that they're followed up. And yeah, I guess that's probably the main thing.
I'd like to thank you again, Chloe, for coming on today.
Perfect. Thank you. No, it's been really good.
If you have any queries, you can contact me on contactrosatalksball@gmail.com. On social media, you can find me through the @rosatalksball. And please do check out my website, rosatalksball.wordpress.com, for all the latest word on women's sport. As always, all of these details are in the description. The Rosa Talks Ball podcast with me, Rosa Simpkin.
They said nobody cared about women's rugby, but guess what? We out here. We out here, fam. We're going nowhere.
And straight down the ground, that is divine from Cross. Kate Cross on so many occasions has made a name for herself with the ball for England. Today at Bristol, it's with the bat.
Oh, and the tune is through here, and the tune for England!